we wanted to have a learning event that would help you have more success in the coming year. And there's a lot of, everybody will have their own definition of success, and mine for tonight's example is just to have more of what you want and less of what you don't. And I'm sure that we're going to get maybe another definition of success, but that's how I define it. And so you want to incorporate what you learned tonight into your personal success plan for 2010. From studying successful people and searching for common themes to success, our speaker will share what he learned. So, like Michael J. Fox and The Secret to Success, and that magic and the special sauce that McDonald's has, you're going to learn that for entrepreneurs from Jim. Our speaker tonight is a graduate of Columbia University Law School. He's made his living as an entrepreneur himself. He's a serial entrepreneur. During his 30-year career, he was the lead investor and started many businesses in buying and selling investment properties. Throughout his career as an entrepreneur, he has also been a teacher. Over the last 25 years, he's written several books, including the best-selling Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur, which was reviewed with overwhelming critical acclaim, and a well-known book reviewer gave it a 12 out of 10. Wow. And I use it personally to introduce people to commercial real estate, and I have a couple of people who came with me tonight to meet him, especially because of that. He's been a guest speaker at Harvard and NYU business schools, annual conventions for national organizations, and investor sessions in every large city in the United States. In 2009, our speaker retired from his investment activities and formed a new media company, Rand Publishing, to create books to help people understand the critical financial and personal principles for success. This startup, under the imprint of The Skinny On, is taking on the Dummies series of books. You receive a copy of one of his books tonight, The Skinny On Success. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. Please put your hands together for Jim Randel.
I'm thrilled to be here. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've started all sorts of companies, from an adventure ski company where we tried to bring people up to adventure ski sites. I made clothing in El Salvador. I started a natural cosmetics company. Of course, I've been most of my life in real estate, wheeling and dealing. And like most entrepreneurs, had my share of failures, and lately a couple of nice successes. By way of background, and I am an entrepreneur groupie. I mean, I'm fascinated by people who take on risk and throw everything they have into whatever their passion may be, and hopefully come out the other end of the tunnel with some level of success. I think people who are willing to do that are special, and I really am thrilled to be around so many entrepreneurs. I grew up in Sandusky, Ohio. Anybody ever heard of it? Know anything about it? You'll know, those who do know that it's got a gigantic amusement park called Cedar Point, which happens to be the home of all sorts of roller coasters. It's the roller coaster capital of the United States. So as a young kid, you wait for the summer and you spend your life riding roller coasters, which is a great preparation for life as an entrepreneur. I go to law school, I get out of law school, and I start wheeling and dealing real estate, and had some successes, had some failures, hopefully learned from my failures. I moved to Connecticut. I was in LA, moved to Connecticut, wheeling and dealing, and concluded that I liked being an entrepreneur, and that was how I wanted to spend my life. What I'd like to talk to you about tonight, and by the way, Russell indicated I should go on for about 40 minutes. I don't know, with the cocktail hour and late, if that will get on too much. Just start rubbing your eyes. You know, I'm very intuitive. I'll pick up on that. I'll know I'm going on too long. And by the way, don't be afraid to shout out questions, and we can have a dialogue here tonight. You may not agree with everything I say, but what I wanted to talk about tonight is why some entrepreneurs perform to their potential and others don't. Now, what I want to talk about, and by the way, Russell said that I'd give you my definition of success. It's not much different than Russell's. We all sort of define success the way we want it. If you put aside spiritual success, which is just too fuzzy a topic to talk about, for most of us, success means some level of wealth, respect, fame, power. I'm more tonight talking about those tangible elements of success. So why some people achieve to their potential and others don't. And what I want to talk about is that gap between your potential and the reality of where you are in your own particular businesses or challenges. And I want to start with a quote I pulled out. Oh, by the way, I did start this book series because I do want to take on the Dummies, and I'm taking on the big publishers. I started a book series called The Skinny On. We now have 8 of these books. We started publishing in the fall of 2008. I'm proud to report that our first book, called The Skinny on the Housing Crisis, was awarded the first prize in a big book competition sponsored by 600 journalists. So we think we're on to something. Time will tell. You're going to get a book at the end of the evening, our latest book called The Skinny on Success. Hey, if you like it, tell your friends. It's how these businesses get off the ground. But I want to start with a quote that I subscribe to. This is from our book called The Skinny on Willpower. There's a guy named William James. He's a physician. He was really the father of the American psychological movement. And he wrote a 2,900-page book. He was a professor and a physician at Harvard. He wrote a 2,900-page book. And one of his conclusions, I'm going to summarize for you what he said in those 2,900 pages. One of his conclusions is, quote, "We are all making use of only a small part of our physical and mental resources. We all live far within our limits. We all have reservoirs of energy and genius to draw upon, of which we do not dream," end quote. And he spawned a lot of the great self-help, self-improvement type guys like Stephen Covey, Eckhart Tolle, Napoleon Hill, all of whom really operate under the umbrella, what you conceive, you can achieve. And there's another great quote. There are those who think they can, and those who think they can't, and they're both right. And this is all sort of spawning from Dr. William James, who said, we all live well within the limits of our potential. So why? Why are some of us achieving at a level below our promise, our potential? Well, I've come up with 10 reasons. Again, I'll watch the clock. Maybe I'll only get to 6 or 7, and if I start running too late, I'll speed through the last 3 or 4. One, I think, is that, and by the way, I want to tell you that the observations I'm giving you this evening are not just mine and my experiences. As I mentioned, I'm kind of a groupie of entrepreneurs, and so I've been around, by good fortune to some degree, some really spectacular entrepreneurs. One of the guys who's endorsed our book, The Skinny on Success, a guy named Eric Hippo. Eric is the CEO of the Huffington Post. He believes he's right at the edge of the new media. Eric tells a story, maybe not quite pertinent, but a fun story about how sometimes everything is foggy until you look back. And he tells about how when he put up the money to start Yahoo, he was the first investor. He gave it to a guy named Jerry Yang, who had this idea for Yahoo in his dorm room. I think he went to Berkeley or somewhere. And Eric was a VC. He gave Yahoo the money to get started, Yang the money to get started. And he gives his secretary, a woman by the name of Barbara Ryder, 1,000 shares for her year-end bonus. And at the time, the shares were about 10 cents a share. So I think he gave her 10,000 shares. They were 10 cents a share, so it was like a $1,000 bonus. And I happen to know Barbara Ryder, and Barbara Ryder said to Eric Hippo, "This is so generous of you. I so desperately need the money. I'm recently divorced. I'm raising 3 kids on my own. Can I sell these shares and, pay my electric bill?" And he said, "Sure, go ahead. I'm not going to. I don't know about this thing Yahoo, but it could work. I'm keeping my shares." She said, "Well, okay, I'm going to sell my shares."